And this is Chris West reporting live from DragonCon 2010, and I have the privilege and pleasure to speak to Marc Singer, Mike Donovan from V. Mike, how you doing?
Very well, thanks, Chris. Nice to be here.
Oh, thank you for joining us on the show. Now, everybody knows you obviously as either Dar from the Beastmaster or as Mike Donovan from V. And a lot of people get typecast into these characters. Now, do you feel that you got typecast and that it's kind of blocked your career, or has it helped your career?
No, I think the old conundrum about whether or not you're being typecast is sort of old news now. You work a lifetime to be identified, and if people identify you in a certain type of role or a certain role itself, that's actually a great compliment, and it also is in its own way a hallmark of how much work you've put into becoming recognizable and also more than identifiable, somebody that people can actually relate to and feel that person is also relating to them.
Yeah, this is very true. It's actually the first time I've actually had an actor give me that. Usually it's, no, I never want to be typecast. I want to just keep doing things. But that is actually a very unique view on it. Now,
well, I think that partly comes from an actor's early experience, because most actors have an early experience of stage work. And on stage, if you're young and if you're trying to build a career, maybe on film too, the idea is versatility. I can play that role. Oh yeah, and I can play that role, and I can play that role too. And so after a while, as you become better and better known, then you become better and better known for the traits and the mannerisms and the sort of the ethics that you are most comfortable portraying. And I think that's why versatility is something that we begin to believe is the hallmark of what's going to keep us flexible as actors, and it isn't always the case.
This is very true. I mean, you speak of flexibility, and of course, you started off as, Dar, the barbarian, in the medieval whatever time period, talking to animals, the Beastmaster, and then you skip into modern, modern 1980,
right? And
you're taking on aliens.
Well, actually, in fact, I started even earlier than that, because I started out on the stage as a Shakespearean actor. So really, I started out in the 16th century.
And then even before then.
Right, exactly. And so Dar and then Mike Donovan, those were roles that came a little further down that developmental line. And it takes a kind of focus and a kind of training to be able to successfully play or portray the hero type or the heroic type. It takes a kind of a minimalist refinement that takes a few years to perfect.
Now, with most actors, they always get in that good guy role. They always say, I want to play a bad guy. Has a bad guy role come out, or is there a bad guy role out there that you think, that's me, I can do that, and I want to be that character?
I don't know. I think bad guy roles are most satisfying in Shakespeare, because they're the most nuanced, I find. I don't have a particular yen to play bad guys on screen. In the modern context, bad guys on screen are very often so vicious and unredeemable as to be almost like monster caricatures. And the thing that I like to play, if I'm going to play a bad guy, the thing I like to play about the bad guy is the lost quality that person doesn't have, that coldness in their spirit or their personality that is lacking. And I like to put into them the idea that they know something is lacking and that it worries them. And then it makes them a little more fun to play and almost humorous in their own way.
Yeah, a little humorous, and adds a little bit of a human touch to them. They're just another guy,
That's right.
Dealing with his problems in his own unique way.
Right, own unique and often terrible and terrifying, yeah.
Terrible, terrifying, and horrifying.
Yeah.
Very good. Now, obviously, you've got these great roles. You've had them. Has there ever been a role that's popped up that you really wanted and didn't get a chance to do?
Well, Yeah, that's a nice way of asking that question. I like that. A lot of the times people say, phrase that question as, are there any roles you've ever turned down that you wished you hadn't turned down? And that's an unanswerable role for an actor because if there is such a role, that makes the person who played the role feel suddenly like, oh, well, so you think you could do it better. Or they feel, gee, I thought I was the first choice. Now I don't think so much of myself for that reason. But what you're asking is there a role that I wish I could have played that I didn't play? And I would have to say no, not really. I haven't seen anything. I can tell you the role that I would like to play next is the role that is always in transition, and that is the role that most closely approximates me in my own character, in my own spirit, in my own attitude. And since I'm always in development, as we all are, every human being is, that role is always just down the road. And that's a kind of a nice thing to shoot for. And I think it's good for all of us to keep shooting for that role in all of our lives that are just down the road.
I think that is the most creative and inspirational answer I have gotten to that question yet.
Oh, well, that's good. I'm glad.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, like we said, you've been known to do these characters, and there's no role that you can't do.
Oh, thanks.
But has there been a role that's come up where it's just been so ridiculous, so out of the league, where it's like, really? You really want me to do this? Come on. Have you had one of those come on moments?
I did. Early in my career, I was asked to play in Caesar and Cleopatra by George Bernard Shaw. And I was a young actor, and I was asked to play Cleopatra's waiting maid, Fatata Tita, who is a large Amazonian warrior type. And in fact, part of my contract for the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco that I was working for at the time, part of my contract was that I had to accept that role as well. So I would say that's the role that I had the most trouble with as a young man playing Fatata Tita, and it was fun, but but I had to wrestle with it.
Now, when you're on the sets, obviously everybody's got a good, crazy story behind the scenes, never been heard for before. You got one of those stories for us?
Oh, I don't know. I probably do. I don't know if anybody's never heard it before. I do know that that the lion that I was working with in one of the three Beastmaster films that I made, the lion who was standing about, I guess 35 yards away from me, somehow got the notion into his head that I was standing on his dinner plate. And he turned around, and all the cast and crew and all the animal handlers had to be far, far distant because it was a lone shot of myself and the lion. And the lion, thinking that I was standing exactly where his dinner was, suddenly stopped and turned around and looked at me, and his eyes got as large as $50 gold pieces. He put all his feet together in a bunch. His ears went flat. He crouched down, and he was ready to come for me. And I was, at that moment, the impala, and he was the lion. And had I moved a fraction, it would have triggered him, and he would have come for me. And at the same moment, simply by standing there, he was then making his own moment to come for me. And it was a frozen moment of any way you look at it, you die. And that's when I became the world's greatest ventriloquist, because without moving my lips, I said, at a range that people could hear, 50 yards away, get the cat, 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 and my diction was perfect. And the animal handlers rushed onto the scene and distracted him in the moment before he pounced.
And you were actually showing us a picture earlier, me and my co-host Sci-Fi Amy, who's sitting in the background looking pretty.
Right,
as always. And you actually showed us on the picture, you were comparing the lion's head to your chest, and it was going from your chest all the way to your chin. That is a big lion.
The lion's head was easily as big as my entire torso. And it was a great lion. His name was Sudan, and had paws like dinner plates. And he had a strange, funny quality about him, because he was in every way ferocious, as a lion has to be, but he also had a kind of a goofy quality to him. And there were times when the light hit him just right that, to my imagination, he looked like the lion in the old classic Bugs Bunny cartoon that said, "Oh, I can't kill you now, Mr. Rabbit. I gotta go home." And he sort of looked like that, which always gave me a giggle.
He probably heard you making fun of him one day and was like, okay, I'm going to have to teach him something on set.
I think if he'd heard me making fun of him, I don't think I'd be here on set or off set or any set.
Oh, well, Marc Singer, it's been a privilege and pleasure speaking to you today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Same here. And hello to everybody. I'm glad to get a chance to say hi.